Hi everyone, this is Asim and today we're going to talk about Pegasus. It's a spyware and it has been in the news in the past few months for all the wrong reasons. If you see this article, this mentions that phones of 2 ministers, 3 opposition ministers and many other people were targeted for surveillance. So this has been because of a database leak which was related to this Pegasus spyware. So we'll be talking about that in more detail. But in short, if you would have to ask me what's Pegasus spyware, so it's a spyware that has been used to target or do surveillance on a lot of high-profile people, including many journalists, ministers, leaders, and rights activists and other kinds of people, not only in India but throughout the globe. So in this video, we're gonna see what this Pegasus spyware is, who created it, and how is it being supplied and being used, what's the purpose of it, and whether is it even legal to have this, and what are the legal implications of that. So all those things we're gonna talk. Then we'd also delve into some technical capabilities of it, what are the different technical capabilities the spyware has, and we would see why this is one of the most sophisticated and advanced spyware in the whole category of any cyber warfare or any cyber espionage tools that's out there. So it's the people or the company behind it, it's a leader in this field, so we'll be talking about that. Towards the end, I would be also showing up where you can see these malware samples and how you can, if you want, you can use it for research purposes. However, I strongly suggest that if you don't have a lot of experience in it and as to how to create a contained environment, I would say strongly stay away from it rather. Or if you have a different device which is not being used for your personal purposes and which is off the network kind of thing, you can use it for testing purposes. Otherwise, you can just read this report. I would be adding all the links in the description. There is also a mobile verification toolkit that's released by Amnesty International. So it's just it's a Python tool. You can just plug your mobile phone and you can run that Python tool, and it would automatically do all the forensic analysis and give you a report of it. So you can go and read the documents. I would add the links and show a small preview of that as well towards the end of this video. If we see the Pegasus spyware page on Wikipedia, it mentions that it's developed by Israeli cyber arms firm NSO Group that can be covertly installed on mobile phones running mostly versions of iOS and Android. The 2021 Project Pegasus revelation suggests that the current Pegasus software can exploit all recent iOS versions up to 14.6. As of 2016, Pegasus was capable of reading text messages, tracking calls, collecting passwords, location tracking, accessing the target device's microphone and camera, and harvesting information from apps. So you might ask, Asim, was it there in 2016 as well? So if you go and read about NSO Group has been founded in 2010, and since then they have been making these kinds of spywares with the latest version more advanced than the previous one. So this is not something that's very new. And in 2016, if you go and read, so in 2016 there was this attempt on a UAE human rights activist. I don't remember his name, but he was sent a link and the link mentioned on his iMessage on his iPhone. In the iMessage, he got that there's a link that if you want to see the videos and proof of the UAE regime's torturous crimes, you can go and click on this link and you can see the videos or whatever the information is that. So basically it was disguised as there was some proof of inhuman treatment of people by the UAE regime, and if you open that link, you would be able to get all that proof. So that's a very basic bait that could be sent to a human rights activist, and instead of clicking on that link, this reporter, he went to Citizen Lab. Citizen Lab is again a cyber security specialist people. So he went to them and he showed them that link. That link, along with the cyber Citizen Lab, it was analyzed by Lookout. So Lookout is again another cyber security firm, and they found that it was a very sophisticated spyware. It contained 3 0 days. Yep, you heard me right, 3 0 days. And using these 3 0 days, like an attacker could just by clicking, like if the person had just click on that link, the attacker would have gained an admin access onto their devices. So they would have been able to switch on the camera, switch on the microphone, track their any location activities, listen to their call, record their calls, call logging, read their messages from WhatsApp and other apps. So they can do anything on the device if they would have had admin access on their device. And all that the victim had to do was just click on that link. So you can see how sophisticated that was. And that was the first case where an Apple remote just click exploit was like documented ever. And it had 3 0 days, and one of each 0 days like that's been sold for millions of dollars in the black market. So you can easily understand the capabilities that this NSO group had even in 2016. So they created an exploit and they sent to this investor, like this human rights activist people, and then with the help of this cyber security firm Lookout and Citizen Lab, they figured out that okay, this was Pegasus. So the spyware was named Pegasus, and NSO Group is it's a firm that owns this Pegasus spyware. It was back in 2016. Then it has been found other users of this. So if you go to an NSO site, they mention that they sell these sophisticated softwares or spywares only to governments, and that too for counter-terrorism operations. But obviously, as you can see, that this was being used to target human rights activists. In other cases, even in cases where Mexican cartel have been using it to target journalists, and then once they have figured out the journalists, they have been not very good ending to those. So it's kind of porous, and it was not very regulated in that sense that it was only being handled by governments and only for counter-terrorism operations. It was being giving to some regimes who were trying to target human rights activists and other kinds of people as well. You might think that it was back in 2016. Why Pegasus is again in highlight in the recent events like in July 2021. So in July 2021, there was a widespread media coverage of Project Pegasus revelations, along with an in-depth analysis of this spyware by the human rights group Amnesty International. I would show the report of that as well. That uncovered that Pegasus was still being widely used and used against high-profile targets. It showed that Pegasus was able to inject in all modern iOS versions up to 14.6 through a zero-click iMessage exploit. So even you didn't even have to click on it. So it was a zero-click iMessage exploit. And 14.6 was the latest version. Right now, the latest iOS version is 14.7.1. So this is the publication, Forbidden Stories. So these are the one who did this, the Pegasus project. And what Forbidden Stories is, let me talk a bit background about it. So Forbidden Stories is again a non-profit organization, which is a French organization, and they have people from throughout the globe. A lot of journalists, they are partaking into its activities. So any story that other journalists who cannot pursue them because of any reason, so they can just come up with evidence and they can tell that this is the story and all. So they try to continue that investigation with the help of other investigative journalists throughout the world, and then try to come up with the whole story and held people accountable who are doing those atrocities. Like there was this case when a journalist was killed by the Mexican cartel, so they completed that whole investigation even after her death. So this is they take very hard and they take very risky operations and they try to complete that. Another example of this investigation of journalism was this International Consortium of Journalism, and that's where this book came from, the Panama Papers. So the Panama Papers is basically a leak of the black money trail. So Mossack Fonseca is a company which where a lot of these shell companies are holed up, and it's basically a research on that. So there was an insider, whistleblower, who leaked a lot of data from Mossack Fonseca, and this International Consortium of Journalists, they did a research of I think 18 months or something. They did an investigation on that, and after that investigation, this book came out, and obviously there was news coverage throughout the globe, so they published it simultaneously. So it was a coordinated effort from over 300 journalists, I think, and that was over a period of 18 months. So it was a totally very high profile secret that was kept throughout the globe, so that none of these get leaked through any places. A lot of high profile names came into that, and you can read about it online as well. So that's about forbidden stories and the International Consortium of Journalists. If you see this Amnesty International, they have this an in-depth research. So if you can see this, it's a very detailed technical analysis, and it's easy to follow. It's not like they have very hard technical terms. It's very easy to follow. I skimmed through this. I read a lot of parts of this. What Amnesty International is, it's a human rights group. They try to protect human rights wherever it's being violated. They run through charity and all. So if you want, you can donate them as well. You can go through these, read this, how Pegasus, like how they discovered network injection attacks and what all these. So I'll be talking in a very 10,000 feet view of this. Amnesty International also posted all their investigations and whatever data, URLs, domains, whatever they found, they posted it on a GitHub repo, Amnesty Tech Investigations 2021-07-18_NSO. The sticks file, the Pegasus file, processes file, v2 domains, v3, v4 validation domains, emails, files, etc. So to get to know about all these and what these contains in the README here. As well as, I would suggest that you go through this report. It's quite a read. Take your coffee and then start reading this. It's a very interesting one. You would definitely enjoy this one. Along with that, after that, you would be easily understanding what all these files are. Otherwise, it might be a bit hard to understand what these files actually contain. Then they have also released this mobile verification toolkit that I mentioned. It's a tool to facilitate the consensual forensic analysis of Android and iOS devices for purpose of identifying traces of compromise. There's this documentation, and it's just a pip install thing, and you can just go on and start with this. There's a Docker container as well, you can use that also. For iOS, the forensic evidences are more, as a lot of data is being logged into this device itself. For Android, it's a bit harder because not a lot of these logs are available for Android. You would get to understand all these if you read this, like what are different logs that are being created by Android devices and Apple devices, and all those things are there in this report. So hope you go through this read over the weekend and you might enjoy it. So with this investigation, it was found that even in India it was being used to spy, and phones of 2 ministers, 3 opposition leaders, and a lot of other people were found. The numbers were found in this database. So what actually happened was, there was a database of around 50,000 phone numbers that was there. So this was leaked online, and through this French non-profit Forbidden Stories and Amnesty International, they got hold of it, and then they started looking for those people, and then they found that these numbers were actually infected by this Pegasus spyware. So not all 50,000 numbers were checked, but randomly a few of those were checked, and those were found that those were some human rights activists, or there were some politicians or leaders from around the globe. So it was a collaborative effort by a lot of these, a lot of media partners and such. And then in that, there was a list of 300 verified numbers, including those used by ministers, opposition leaders, journalists, legal community, businessmen, government officials, scientists, right activists, and others. However, The Guardian, which is a very famous news media outlet, they said that the presence of a phone number in the database was not a confirmation of whether the corresponding device was infected with Pegasus or was subject to an attempted hack. So it could be that that phone number was there because of the person who was trying to get hold of that, they had that number somewhere for some other reason. It could be that. So it's not it's not a strong confirmation of that. And then the article further mentions that about the NSO groups, the group behind this spyware, their stand on it, and what they mentioned. They mentioned that they have only 60 intelligence, military and law enforcement agencies in 40 countries, and only those people they have given this spyware and not anyone else. So you might think that how can this even be legal, right? So it's like just like a company who creates conventional ammunitions or guns and rifles. So those are very regulated thing, and those companies cannot sell these these guns or machine guns to terrorists and such, missiles to terrorists. So in a way those are regulated, and even like this NSO group also mentions that they are also a very regulated industry, and there's a very strong check on whom they are selling and whom they are not selling. So they have a vetted list of organizations or vetted list of countries to which they sell this spyware. It was again in controversy in 2019 because of like WhatsApp. So there were around 1400 WhatsApp users that were being targeted using Pegasus. So there was a bug in WhatsApp using which like if the attacker called you on WhatsApp and even if you didn't pick it up, the code got executed, and as soon as that got executed, this Pegasus spyware was basically installed on your device. So WhatsApp filed a lawsuit against them in the US San Francisco court. At that time, there were a lot of people, Indians, who were targeted. Like there were several human rights activists, lawyers who were working in tribal areas. Elgar Parishad case accused, Bhima Koregaon case lawyer, Dalit activist, journalist reporting on defense and strategy, and a DU lecturer as well. So let's talk about some of the technical capabilities that have been mentioned. So once the spyware is installed, Pegasus can potentially harvest most of the data on the device, including SMS, emails, WhatsApp chats, call logs, GPS data, contact lists, and transmit it back to the attacker. It can also activate functionalities such as camera, microphone, call recording, etc. to provide surveillance capabilities to the client. So basically your phone is the spy who is like spying on you. So it's like what happens is once this Pegasus spyware is onto your mobile phone, so there could be a lot of ways. Like we saw that in the iMessage way, there was a link that was being sent, and once you click on that link, the spywares were downloaded onto your mobile phone and it was executed. There could be other places where they would package it as an APK and then they could transfer it through that. So there could be other means of transportation, but the modus operandi is the same, that once they are onto the mobile devices, they try to gain root privileges through a number of known exploits or their own zero-day exploits that they possess. So using that, once they gain access to that, they try to hook into all these functionalities, and also they try to hide their traces by removing all the logs or deleting logs. If you read the Amnesty International report, their disguising capabilities have also been mentioned, that they try to rename themselves as an Apple device, actual device process name, so that if an antivirus is scanning, they won't be able to find. They would think that okay, it's a legitimate process. Also, they try to delete logs from a lot of places, but deleting logs itself tampers the log file, so it's a bit revealing into itself. So if you read the whole report, you would get to know all of these things. So after it has gained admin privileges or root privileges on a mobile phone, it hooks into these functionalities like it bypasses end-to-end encryption by reading the data before it's getting encrypted. So it's able to read your Telegram messages, your WhatsApp messages. It's also able to read your SMS, so any OTP or any other kind of services that you're using, so it's able to read those. If you're communicating with any person using WhatsApp or Telegram or through SMS messages, it's able to read those. It's also able to open your start your microphone and camera without actually giving any indication that those are being used, because it has the root privileges, it has the admin privileges, so all these things can be easily under the attacker's control without giving any indication to the victim that they are being spied upon. Now that we know what are the different technical capabilities, let's talk about some of the limitations of Pegasus. Now, if here in this Indian Express article, there was this Pegasus brochure that mentioned that usually an attacker needs to feed the Pegasus system just the target phone number for a network injection. The rest is done automatically by the system, says a Pegasus brochure. In some cases, though, network injections may not work, so that's one of the limitations. For example, remote installation fails when the target device is not supported by the NSO system. Okay, so we have some devices which are not supported. or its operating system is upgraded with new security protections. So you see why that's very important, that you always have the latest updated operating system, because there could be bugs or exploits found for the previous versions, but the companies that have these, like who are making these operating systems, like the Android is being maintained by Google, Apple has their own iOS. So the companies, they try to figure out bugs internally as well as through their bug bounty programs, and they try to fix any of these flaws that's found into these operating systems. So that's why it's mentioned that as soon as any update comes on your mobile phone, that's the best way to protect yourself. They also mentioned that apparently one way to dodge Pegasus is to change one's default phone browser. According to a Pegasus brochure, installation from browsers other than the device default is not supported by the system, which is Chrome browser is the default for Android devices and Safari is the default for Apple devices. In all such cases, installation will be aborted and the browser of the target device will display a predetermined innocuous web page so that the target does not have any inkling of the failed attempt. So basically, once you click on, let's say Pegasus, the link is being sent to your device, and you click on the device, you click on the link, and the link takes you to a website which analyzes your system, like which system it is and what operating system is being run and all the basic information that it gets while running through the browser. So once it gets those details, it sends a custom payload from its own. It redirects you to a website where you get the custom payload for that. So let's say if you're on Apple device on iOS version, let's say 14.1. So it would redirect you to a URL where you would get the exploit for 14.1. And suppose if you're on Android 11 or you're on Android 10, so those would have different URLs on the basis of what configuration your device is. And if it's a device that they don't support right now, it would redirect you to a normal random website or a simple website so that you don't get suspicious of any attack being done on you. They also mentioned that if all else fails, Pegasus can be manually injected and installed in less than 5 minutes. So if you give your mobile phone to someone and they have this Pegasus and they want it to install on your mobile phone, it would take them hardly less than 5 minutes to do that, if an attacker gets physical access to the target device. So yeah, they have also mentioned what information can be compromised. As I already told you, Pegasus contact the attacker's command and control service to receive and execute instructions, so they can run commands from their own servers, and those commands would be running on your mobile phone. So let's say if I am the attacker, and then I would say a command that open microphone or start microphone, start camera, it would automatically run that onto your mobile phone and you won't get aware of it. Send back the target's private data including passwords, contact list, calendar events, text messages, live voice calls, even those via end-to-end encrypted messaging apps. The attacker can control the phone's camera and microphone and use the GPA function to track a target. It's also mentioned what are different techniques it used to avoid detection. Pegasus sends only scheduled updates to avoid extensive bandwidth consumption. The spyware is designed to evade forensic analysis, avoid detection by antivirus software, and can be deactivated and removed by the attacker when and if necessary. So I read it somewhere, it was called the suicide mode. So if the attacker thinks that it's no longer needed onto a device, so it would just send that signal to the Pegasus spyware running on your mobile phone, and the spyware would automatically clean all its artifacts on the device. It would remove all the APK traces, all the log files, everything there. It would be like as if it was never on your device. Now let me show you the file or where you can see this malware spyware into action. So this is the VirusTotal, this is the VirusTotal website where this spyware has been uploaded and it's being analyzed. So it's 257 KB. 39 out of the 62 antivirus engines that's there on this VirusTotal have flagged it as a spyware or a high risk malicious thing. You can see the details here, what are different SHA versions and all. If you want, you can download this same malware from here, malshare.com. All these links would be in the description. So you can do your own research if you want. As always, do it only in a safe environment, in a controlled environment. Then there's this Pegasus for Android technical analysis and findings of HACR of April 2017 by the Lookout team. Lookout is another cybersecurity consultancy firm. Now let's come back to the mitigations that you could have. So one of the mitigations is obviously that you can use an archaic handset, but that's not a safe way. So some of the few mitigations that we can talk about is you can use a feature phone, rather like not a smartphone, which is not a thing that everyone could agree with. Other thing is you can always have an updated software, which is more easier for anyone to do. You could have updated software so that you can be safe from any known exploits. Obviously 0-day would still have you, but that's the only possible solution. Also, frequently changing handsets, it's one of the expensive remedies, but if you can afford that, and if you're a high profile target, you would want to do that. Yeah, that's all that there is to protect you from that. The very basic is obviously updating your software whenever you have an option. Also, don't download any random software. So prevention is better than cure, which has been obviously the saying. So you should avoid downloading software or APK files from random websites. Rather use the Google Play Store to download it. Also, don't click on random links just because they have something that you think is worthy of. You can maybe copy that link or open it into a Docker container or a Linux environment or any other virtual machine onto that. You can use that so that even if there is this capability, like one of the things that if they're able to attack or compromise their like PC as well, so that also would be limited because they would only be able to compromise your virtual machine or your Docker container and not the whole machine. So that's another way that you can use to like keep yourself safe from these kinds of attacks. With that said, thank you. Have a nice day. Hope you enjoyed this, and if you want me to make more videos of these kinds, you can check, you can add those in the description, and I would be happy to take these. Thank you. Have a nice day.